Right then, okay, good afternoon everyone. Firstly, welcome to everyone and thanks for joining our second ECS Talks webinar entitled HR Driving Business Growth. A quick introduction to on me, for those that don't know me, I'm one of two directors here at ECS, working across both new business and account management. I'm also joined by our host, Carl Bagshaw, and fabulous guest speaker, Sally-Ann McKevitt, formerly Head of HR, now Service Development Manager at National Express Accessible Transport. I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit later, but a quick introduction into the event and why we're doing it. Well, you know, I think we can all probably agree that HR have played a critical role during COVID, and the value of HR has never been more apparent. We certainly believe HR leaders are business leaders, and I really want to shine the light on the responsibility HR take and the key role they have in driving business growth. And amongst other things, we are going to be talking about staff retention, candidate attraction, and really the importance of employer brand and really fostering a good culture. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. There are some rules. Everyone's on mute. Everyone's camera's off. We want to make this pretty interactive, so please do ask any questions via the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. And they will come direct to me. So if we can kick things off, before I pass on to Carl and Sally, we're going to run a quick poll, which I'll launch in about 2 or 3 seconds. And it's really, you know, here and now, you know, how are you preferring working from home? Do you want to get back in the office, or are you liking the flexibility of both? So I'll send that now. If you could answer, and I'll pass to Carl very, very shortly.
Right, good afternoon everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to ECS today. As Paul's already said, I'm one of the directors, been with the business for 23 years, so seen a lot of change over that time. I'm proud to have Sally-Ann McKevitt as our guest speaker. So Sally, I'm going to hand it over to you really as that initial introduction, but as well as giving us an introduction as to what you currently do, could you give us a bit of a background as to how your career has panned out? Because I'm always intrigued to understand why people make the career paths they do and what made you become the person you are.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Hi, everybody. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to talk. It's been, it's a real pleasure to be here. So yeah, I'm Head of Service Development for a company called National Express Accessible Transport. We run accessible transport services across the West Midlands. So yeah, I've worked in HR for about 22 years prior to last year. I kind of landed into HR actually, Carl. I did my A-levels. My dad booted me out, told me you've got to go and get a job, and my first job just happened to be in HR, which was, and I found it just really suited my personality at the time. And then, so I've been working for the business that I work for now for 16 years. I joined, originally as a senior HR officer, and the business has grown over the years. So, like I say, we're accessible transport. We deliver for anybody who's within the West Midlands, they will know we deliver the ring and ride service, and we also deliver home to school services. So these are for people with disabilities and mobility difficulties. And for home to school, it's obviously children with special educational needs. It's very, very rewarding business to work within. So we were a charity when I first joined 16 years ago. And in our heyday, we were doing 2 million trips. So, in 2010, we were doing 2 million trips, and really transporting people across the West Midlands with disabilities. And what's really key about what we do is about changing people's lives and getting them out of the house. Mm-hmm. In 2010, because of us being a charity, we started to have grant cuts, and the business was really affected through grant cuts, and we had to diversify really over those years, and the portfolio of the business started to change, which then in the latter 2 years we really did struggle, and then we finally went into administration, but thankfully we were taken over by National Express, and that was last August. And what National Express has brought to us, it's just been fantastic. It's been absolutely eye-opening and amazing, and it's been great for the business. Is a whole back of commercial way of thinking to the business and how we can grow. So last August, I switched over from being head of HR when National Express took us over, and joined the company as head of service development. So my key role now has been really to focus on how we can grow the business, how we can develop the business, and what we can do with the business. And obviously the past few months have really we've kind of made that go on fast forward to a certain degree as to how we change things and how we diversify and how you have to quickly adapt to change. But it's been obviously a really exciting time, and the business has changed just wonderfully over the last 12 months. We've got a great HR team within National Express. It's a fantastic team, and what our employees now have access to and how they're looked after is so much better than what they ever were before, and it really is a key part to the business.
No, excellent. It's always good. I know, from our point of view, Paul's been with the business for 23, 24 years, and we've lived in our own little bubble.
Yeah.
And it's only been really the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 years, we've actually thought people can offer advice externally. You know, we're not afraid to discuss what we're doing as a business and use their ideas. And I think it's mature. It's certainly helped ECS mature as a business anyway. So I'll come on some of those other points in a minute. Now, before we jump onto the main topics, I've got a little secret that I want to share with everybody. Not only is Sally our guest speaker today, but she's also my neighbour. So I've seen firsthand how Sally and her husband seem to cope in lockdown with having 2 young children at home. Obviously, Sally's got a very pressurised job, so has Neil, her husband. He's in IT. And I'll be honest, Sally, I'm quite intrigued to see why and how have you always got a smile on your face? Such a good routine. I want to know, how is that the case, or are you screaming? And if that is the case, what's your secret? And what can you offer people advice on moving forward? Because there's still going to be a lot of working from home. The children are about to break up for the 6 weeks holidays, which is obviously going to change the landscape for people who potentially children have been at school. So is there anything you can offer advice, how you've adapted, what it's really been like?
Yeah, crikey. I mean, I'm sure you've probably heard us screaming at the kids over the fence, but having a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, the 4-year-old who's particularly stubborn and likes her own way in particular. I think it's been challenging for everybody, hasn't it? I spoke to a number of my friends well, as to how they've had to adapt. And at first it was incredibly daunting, wasn't it, of what we've got to homeschool and we need to do this. And as you know, Carl, my sister is a teacher, and even she struggled with it as well, actually, having to work from home, teach from home, and she's got a daughter, and she found it incredibly hard doing homeschooling on top of her job, which, the irony is right there, isn't it? I'm a very naturally positive person, a very happy, bubbly kind of character, but it isn't easy. I think what you just have to do is structure your day. But there are some days when I've been doing Zoom meetings at work, and I've got a hoodie on, I haven't done my makeup, my hair's wild, sort of thing. But I think everybody's in that same boat, and also it's the kind of allowance of just letting your children, if they want to pop onto the screen, just let them pop on the screen and say hi to the people that you're talking to. And because we are all in that same boat, everybody's got that same thing happening, haven't they? Mm-hmm. One of the key organisations we work with is Transport for West Midlands, and one of their very senior people was doing a talk, and his son was in the background with like a Darth Vader mask on and stuff like that for like 5 minutes, and he had this just brilliant, he just kept going and going and going. I really took my hat off for him doing that. But yeah, it's just about structuring that routine. I think what I found in particular is that my work day is probably a little bit longer now than what it would have been before. Whereas, you get into the office for 8 o'clock, you finish, I don't know, about 5, you have a lunch break and stuff like that. That hasn't happened during this whole period. I think it's a case of wake up, and what's the first thing you do? You switch your laptop on, you sit in bed, going through emails, and you probably would have checked them on your phone and stuff before going into the office previously, but it is that full on, you're switched on, you're in, and you're working. And we've been scheduling meetings like much earlier and much later as well. And sometimes you find that you're still doing meetings at 6 o'clock at night, and you're like, you don't know where the day's gone, do you really? It's quite crazy. But then we've been quite lucky with our son's school in particular, that they've put everything on in a morning. There's been 4 classes for us to go through. So we know that by 3 o'clock we need to have done those 4 classes. And we've been able to just structure it, and like between me and my husband, just basically work it out between us and do the 4 classes. But what's been challenging on that is having resources at home that teachers expect you to have. Some of the time, like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I've got no clue. Getting the children motivated. I've actually found, like, with our son in particular, it's been a real struggle for him. So he's gone a bit more inwards and just wanted to sit on the settee, whereas he was normally a very, very bubbly character, as you know, Carl. He's a really bubbly character. And at times he's just been quite into himself. And I think he's missed the structure of school as well. So
Yeah, it's. I mean, we've seen it at home as well. You know, when you get wrapped into your working day, it's quite easy to give in more than what you would normally.
yeah,
And, you know,
definitely,
let them have their device for half an hour longer.
absolutely,
It's so
yeah,
hard, isn't it? But
yeah,
fortunately, I think for us all, the weather overall has been on our side. You know, we've
absolutely,
had some great opportunity to go and explore parts of where we live that we normally wouldn't,
yeah,
because you're wrapped up and cocooned in your own little world. So let's hope the weather over the next 6 weeks continues, and
yeah,
people can make the
definitely.
most where possible of being outside.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right with that. Weather has played a massive part, and but I'll just throw the kids out into the garden and stuff. It's been great, hasn't it? And even for ourselves, just going and sitting out in the sunshine, it does your mental health well, doesn't it?
It certainly does, especially around 6:30 on a Friday evening. Nip out for a glass of wine. But moving on. So yeah, just getting into the nitty gritty now, really, of the webinar and the topics we want to discuss. Now, as I say, I've been in the industry for a long time, like yourself, Sally, and I've really seen what we do evolve over those 23 years. You know, from initially using a fax machine now to everything being in the cloud. How has HR, obviously I know that's not your role now, but over the time you've been doing that, how have you seen that evolve as a business unit, with regards to sort of all the things you now have to potentially think about that maybe not have been there 10 years ago, such as mental health and diversity? Is there enough hours in the day for HR?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not involved in the HR function now, but yeah, I think mental health is a massive thing, isn't it, for all of us right now? I'm going through a period of lockdown. I think has been very, very challenging for everybody, that our own mental health has been affected, as to, you know, how we deal with things. And it's, I think it's been there with being a support for each other, isn't it? And we've got, like I said, we've got a fantastic HR team. A couple of the things that HR have done for us has been, you know, sending out wellbeing surveys and doing that check-in with staff, and I think that's really, really important. And you know, they've had the feedback from that, and have adapted. You know, given access to or provided awareness to the EAP scheme that we have, and it's various other things that they've introduced, and that's been really, really important.
Okay, and over the last, I mean, if we look at HR over the last 12 months, or your HR team within National Express as a whole, and how you've seen what they've done over the last 3 months, how do you think that will evolve moving forward? What do you think the HR remit will be over the next 12 months? What's the key factors they need to really take on board?
I really don't know. I can see we've got one of our colleagues from National Express on board, and yeah, Rachel, if you feel free to jump in and offer any support for Colin with respect to what HR and the future is of HR over the next 12 months.
Okay, perfect. Well, we might take you up on that.
Yeah,
we might take you up on that. So we've briefly discussed on this the sort of the culture, the well-being of teams. You mentioned HR, the team in general have been sending out wellbeing packs and keeping in regular contact. Do you think is there sort of a minimum standard and all companies should adopt that, or can sometimes it be a bit overpowering if you constantly?
No, yeah, I do think that, you know, the anxiety and mental health is a major thing, isn't it? It's a thing that we're much more aware of. So, you know, the way you were saying about 10 years ago, were we aware of those sorts of things, those softer things? Not necessarily, and in particular men's mental health. You know, there's much more recognition of men's mental health now, isn't there? And how actually men do suffer from anxiety, and, you know, but it's been able to speak about it. I guess what my fear is for our business and every business going, you know, across the country is what does it look like going forward when we come out of this? There's going to be a lot of people unemployed. There's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of people scared to go back to work. You know, I'm certainly very kind of daunted about going to supermarkets or busy places. You know, we went to Twycross Zoo last Saturday, and it was terrifying, really, because it was like a free-for-all of being there, and you could just see kind of like this. How easy things could spread that we've never really thought about before, and quite worrying, isn't it? So, you know, we have a social aspect to our job, and we're very fortunate with our staff are very, very dedicated to what they do. But they've worked throughout. You know, we haven't had a lockdown as such with our business. Now, Ring and Ride services have been continuing. We've been taking disabled people to supermarkets, various places like that. And then we've obviously been diversifying and doing NHS shuttles and delivering food parcels. And our staff have just kept going, which has just been amazing. They were just really willing and wanting to work as well, which is just really fascinating. But it's about, well, what do we need to give them? What's the tools we need to give them? How do we protect them going forward? And how long do we need to be thinking about this as well, isn't it, going forward, about PPE and everything that staff needs? How do we have people come back into the office? So it's a whole host of things to worry about right now, isn't there? It's a massive task for HR, and in particular, sorry, Carl. I was just about to say, and in particular, like the whole furlough thing. This is something nobody knew about, did they? This is a new thing that's come on board, and we've all had to go, what is this? What are we doing with this? And one thing we found quite fascinating is that we were worried about staff going on to furlough, but actually we were having some staff say, do you mind if I go on to furlough? Can I go on that next round of furlough? And we were getting that, which took us like a little bit by surprise, to be perfectly honest. We were getting those.
And has there been a sort of clear, defined communication, people, with not only the people who are business as usual, as you've already mentioned there, and obviously looking after them from a PPE point of view, etc., but have the people on furlough been communicated to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, HR have made sure that that's all been set up. So our managers keep in regular contact with those who are on furlough leave. There's been weekly phone calls, and the feedback from our staff has been really positive about that. They've really appreciated having those phone calls. Yeah, and in addition, we also have what we call Neat News. So we have a weekly newsletter, which used to be fortnightly, but we decided straight away we need to make that weekly and just keep everybody up to date via email. So it's just a 3-page document that goes out. And it's really good. It gives the key points of what we're doing as a business, what's happening, from a health and safety perspective, and everything like that. So we've had to obviously make massive changes health and safety wise, and really have to adapt the business quite quickly from a health and safety perspective and introduce new ways of working.
Yeah, and at a cost as well, but obviously people's well-being is more important. I mean, we recently moved back into the office, albeit on very, very limited numbers. But yeah, for us, it's just making sure we've got everything in place and follow the rules as best as you can. But we're all creatures of habit, and we all get to use the microwave and realise we're not allowed.
And shaking hands. Shaking hands is a massive thing, isn't it? You see somebody you're like, oh, hello, and you go to touch him, oh gosh, no, I shouldn't do this. Yeah.
That's it. It's just getting used to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I know from light of people working remotely, was that a major task for your business in basically closing the office on day one and then reopening it from home? Was there any
not necessarily, No, it worked out quite well, to be perfectly honest. Most people had a laptop anyway, so it was a case of just, you're now working from home. We obviously had our drivers still going into work. So, like I say, we started to, one of the first things we started to do was food parcel delivery on behalf of Birmingham City Council. So we've delivered 45,000 parcels from March until July to Birmingham's vulnerable citizens. So our drivers were going in to do that. Our operational staff were going into the office to go deliver those services. But management weren't coming in, and management at home, or the admins at home, and so on and so forth. What we hadn't fully appreciated at the start was actually they still needed to see us. They still needed our presence around. And we had some feedback from a colleague of mine who was like, we haven't seen anybody, they kind of felt a little bit left to it. And that's something that we had to quickly learn and think, whilst it's safe for us to be at home, they still need to see us because they are key workers. They continue to do a fantastic job. But sometimes just having our presence around helps boost that morale, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's not a case of you and them, is it?
No, not at all.
We're all in it together. I mean, we I think it was a 3 million PC and Chris who came back first, wasn't it? And but all we could do at the time was keep in touch with people via Teams, which is such a fantastic tool. And I'll be honest, before lockdown, I never used it. Moving forward, I'm going to be using it as often as I use Outlook. And the amount of money and time that's been wasted travelling on motorways when the norm is now just let's have a conversation face to face over the technology platforms.
I think that's a really key point there, Carl, because we're all spending a lot of money of sitting in our cars, clocking at mileage, which has obviously an impact on the environment, catching trains, going places left, right, and centre, and spending 2 hours on trains or whatever. It started the year, I was up in Greater Manchester for a meeting that was only an hour long, but that takes most of your day out, doesn't it? Now you could just jump on and do actually more meetings throughout the day because you're using all these new platforms. And it is really kind of, it's making the world a lot smaller place, isn't it? So we are all, we're so easily accessible now, which is brilliant.
I've mentioned Teams there. Is there any other platforms your group, your company have sort of invested in, or anything outside of Teams that you found really useful?
Well, we're all Google based, so we use Google Hangouts, which is it works exactly the same sort of way. But yeah, Google and Teams have been our two key ones. Obviously, we've got the Zoom as well. The charity side, as a charity, we couldn't massively invest in technology, and you know we're probably a little bit behind the times, so some of them found it a little bit difficult to adapt, and like having to say to them, just switch video on, it'll be fine, you'll be able to see us, it'll be right. And like, they're a little bit scared to do that, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And you know, they're slowly adapting now as to how it all works as well, which is it's great.
That is good. And I think Google Hangouts seems a bit young for us, Sally. I think that's our children would use it. Just to finish this section before we go to a quick Q&A, I appreciate not every business has recruited over the last 6 months, but we have seen some positive signs, more so over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks. And equally, there's been sectors, you know, certainly supermarkets, etc., that have been recruiting quite heavily. Do you think recruiting remotely now, and again taking away that initial face-to-face interview, is a thing of the past, or do you still think when we are back to a degree of normality that the traditional way of recruiting should continue, or are we in this new era now of everything's going to be done remotely, we onboard people remotely, and the first time you may actually physically meet somebody is on their first working day?
Yeah, I guess it depends what the future is with this pandemic, really, doesn't it? So, yeah, my manager, the managing director, he's done some recruitment during the past couple of months, and he's done all online and, you know, through Zoom meetings, etc. For us, if we're recruiting drivers, we're still going to have a certain degree of people attending the site, because they've got to have a driving assessment. You know, there's some physical things that they actually need to do prior to being given a job with us. Resourcing team structure recruitment in such a way that it's part online anyway, so we have a set number of questions to answer, and then the person gets a telephone interview before they get through to that physical face-to-face stage. But I think the country is changing. I really do. So my brother-in-law in particular, you know, he's just secured a new job, as you know, Carl, recently, and that was all fully done through Zoom. You know, whereas normally he would have been going up and down on the train to London. So, yeah, it's a different world, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, it is. But it's quite interesting though, because again, if you look at the younger generation, and it pains me to say that, but you know, the younger generation, they're so natural when it comes to using mobile devices and you know, TikTok and being in front of the camera.
I've never used Snapchat.
I'm getting voice memos off my daughter on WhatsApp. You know, that's the norm for them. But the first time I'm on Teams and I'm, you know, faffing around, and, you know, it's just a change, isn't it? It's just a change. But
what about for yourselves? Do you, like in terms of the recruitment industry and with how you guys work? How do you think you'll get new candidates registered onto your books, and how do you think you guys will do it?
To be honest, we adopted video technology probably around about 18 months ago now. Certainly working with the IT sector, time is everything. A lot of the type of roles we work, naturally there's always an element of working from home. So we've had plenty of practice in working with our clients. They provide us pre-arranged technical questions or vetting questions, and then one of our consultants will complete that interview in real time over video, so that can be shared across the business as a whole, can be seen from a mobile device. So yeah, I mean, for us, I think it's definitely the way forward. It saves a lot of cost, a lot of time, which is ultimately the main point, better for the environment. And you know, yeah, when there is that physical interaction needed from certain tests, etc., then you know that can be done by which stage you pretty much made your decision, haven't you? Unless they fail that last test. Yeah, definitely the new norm, as it were. So we're just going to break for a quick Q&A now, Paul. Is there anything from the audience that we want to run through?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Thanks, Sally. To be fair, yeah, there's some really, really good ones, actually. I'm going to pick out two. So firstly, thank you to everyone that's put a question in. But yeah, I'm going to pick out two. The first one is, with staff working from home, it's even more important that you hire the right person, right? But how do you test for those values? Obviously, you know, you're going to be trusting people a lot more. They're going to be working remotely. They're going to have potentially have kids at home now, where they'll usually come into the office and use a PC. recruiting the right values, honesty, all that type of stuff. How do you hire the right values now?
Oh, it's a tricky question to answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really don't know. I mean, the industry that we work within, that you have to be a specific type of person anyway, and you can only do the job. So working with disabled people, it's either something you could do or something you can't do. It's as simple as do people start with us, work for 3 months and leave because they can't cope with it? They start with us and never leave. We've got people working right up until the late 60s, early 70s, and beyond, to be perfectly honest. So I think it's how you ask your questions, isn't it, and how you test people's knowledge and how you're trying to get under their skin of testing those values. But yeah, it's a really difficult one to answer.
It is. It is. A lot of our clients do use online testing, personality profile, and that sort of stuff. I think that's going to be really, really ramped up, over the next sort of 12 months or so. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Sally. Just one more question before we move on, then, guys, and that is interesting one actually. Is this the end of the games room? I think we've all seen work for us videos that have got everyone around a ping pong table, around a pool table, having a laugh, having a joke. That isn't probably going to happen anymore.
No.
And that was certainly, I think we get it all the time, Carl, candidates, what's their social sort of scene? Have they got a games room? Have they got a gym on site? Have they got showers? Do they go out socially? They're big questions because they want to join the right type of culture.
Yeah.
Is it the end of that? Is it the end of the games room? I suppose. I think what this person's trying to ask. And what else can we do to replace that?
So we have social rooms, exactly the same sort of thing. So we have pool rooms, staff breakout rooms that have pool tables, etc. And we had to obviously shut those down very, very quickly. And there is a massive social aspect to the role, to everybody's role.
Yeah, that's it.
You form friendships with people you work with.
Of course you do. Yeah, that's the whole point of them, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And like with our staff, we're forever saying to them, you don't need to come on site any earlier than what you need to start. But they still like to come in an hour before, see their friends, talk to each other, play a game of pool and all of that. So yeah, it's changing, isn't it? So what we've introduced is just having like Zoom meetings or Google Hangouts, whatever it might be, of just having a catch up with each other. And so it's not work related, it's just having a catch up. And so virtual drinks or virtual game with one another on a Friday afternoon.
Creating some sort of competition maybe.
Absolutely. And what we've also found really interesting is actually, like, we've been spinning the computer around. Like, I've shown people in the garden and stuff like that. It's really nice to see other people's environments in their houses.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's quite fascinating. But it's
some tips on interior decoration.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got colleagues who've got pets, and their pets have been in the background. They've been showing their pets and stuff like that. So one colleague of ours, he has a whole host of animals, and so he's been doing show and tell like that. And it's doing social aspects, but in a completely different. Of course. But I must admit, I massively miss the interaction with people. I really, really. I miss going into the office and seeing.
I know it's big. I'm just talking from experience here. We've got a games room here, and it's a big social, sort of place for us to sort of hang out together and have that sort of lunch together and talk to people you haven't spoken to for a couple of days or so. It'd be interesting to see how people try and replace that and how they shoot their work for us videos. Because 9 times out of 10, there's a pool table or ping pong table at some point during the shots. So, okay, well, there's plenty more, but I'll pass back to you both to crack on with the second half.
Thank you. So moving on now to brand. Brand is, I've been involved in marketing for ECS, and it's, how do you judge what your brand is like, and what does it actually mean? Is it just a key buzzword that marketing people like to use, and so on? But what influence do you think, National Express and your business unit, the brand has over retaining and attracting staff when the economy picks up? Do you think it's actually valid? Unless I'm not talking to the extreme of Apple or Coca-Cola here, because everybody would want to work for them. But smaller SME-based companies.
I think brand's really important. I just think, like, throughout my career, every company I've ever worked for, I've wanted to work for. It hasn't been a job necessarily. Obviously, I was invested in whatever role I was doing, but it's also been, for me personally, I wanted to work for that organisation. I've definitely. I've previously worked for an IT company, for a large brewing company, and obviously now where I am now. And for me, like, at the moment, I adore the business that I work for, because I'm investing in it and I believe in it. And we have a number of staff who are in exactly the same boat. You know, I'd say 98% of our workforce are really, really invested within the business and want to be there. And that's why, you know, when we've been through COVID and we've had to quickly diversify and get them to do other things outside of their norm, they very, very quickly did, because they believe in us and they want to do good. I mean, we're very, very lucky that we do have this social aspect, that we're supporting people, you know, who couldn't get out of their houses otherwise if it wasn't for us. So, you know, and that really gets under your skin. Working in the disabled sector really, really gets under your skin. And, you know, it's really important. But one thing that we have had from being a charity is that Ring and Ride is a very, very well-known brand within the West Midlands. It's a very treasured brand. One thing with the Ring and Ride brand is that it's seen as a transport for the elderly, where it's not. There's a major misconception about it. We're a transport for people with mobilities or disabilities for any age, but because it's largely older people who have a disability, it's, you know, it's then seen as an older person's thing. So when we came across into the National Express Group, one of the things I spent a bit of time doing was speaking to young adults with disabilities, and just having a chat with them about what do you want to do, what is it you guys want from life, and, you know, what's your restrictions, what holds you back. And these were like 18 to 25-year-olds who are just fantastic. They didn't really realise that our Ring and Ride brand, which, you know, this much loved brand, that they could use it. And I found that kind of, whoa, okay, so we've really got to do something here. We've really got to change our culture and like, but not our culture, sorry, our brand image. So we've been spending, you know, it's been nearly 12 months since takeover of working as to what we look like as a business, making sure people know that we're more than just Ring and Ride, and doing the food parcels, doing the NHS work has really showcased that, which is stuff that's outside of our norm, but also getting a sexier brand image. So yeah, you know, we're going for different coloured vehicles, we're going for like smarter technology on board the vehicles, and you know, it's just getting it to look bit more sexy really, and attracting to more people, and I think that's really important, you know. So whilst we still maintain this brilliant Ring, you know, if we're looking at the Ring and Ride segment of the business, we're still there doing what the elderly customers want from us, but we're also then coming into new markets of, look, it's actually, we're quite sexy now, we've got this new logo, you know, we've got new design vehicles, and making them part of that as well. And I think that's what's quite important, is involving your customers in your brand image, and also involving existing employees within the brand image. What do they want, what do they see, and, you know, involving them in where the business is evolving to. There's been lots of good feedback on that aspect as well, and our staff are really excited with how the business is evolving and changing, and that new brand image. So I think brand is vital, I really do, and, you know, having employees support and buy-in, you know, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely required, but it's you know, with 3 out of 4 candidates always looking at your website, etc., the company's history and so on. How do you've gone through this recent transformation from a brand point of view? How have you started to measure the results of that? Is it through better staff retention? Is it through more new business opportunities?
Yeah. So for us, new business has been a massive thing for us. So whilst we've been on lockdown, obviously new business is my area now, is what I now focus on. We've had a number of calls of people from local authorities in particular, really excited to know that we're in the market, and that we're back out there. So one thing that we're trying to do as a business is really reshape like local authorities and reshape disabled transport for children. So yeah, it's, you know, it's been about focusing on that. We've then, you know, people are phoning me to say, we want you on board. We're hearing all the good stuff you're doing, and we want you on board. And I think our staff are excited by that, because we're selling that story to the staff as well. So it does help the whole retention piece. I mean, previously when we were a charity, we weren't, you know, the best players in terms of salary, etc. Now we're part of the National Express Group. National Express are a real living wage payer. That, you know, straight away all of our staff got a massive boost, and then this whole host of benefits that HR deliver are just wonderful. So our staff got this real boost, you know, in their whole kind of employment package, and, you know, that's been brilliant. They've got great access to a huge HR team as well now, and it's just really, really good for them.
Good. I think one thing you said there, which we were guilty of, is not sharing what was happening with people internally within the business and not making them part of the journey. You know, you just sort of get locked away in your boardroom or your office, and you come up with all the ideas, you go away and work on something for 6 months, and then by the time you're ready to deliver that, all the changes are in place. So definitely agree. We've had some fantastic feedback from our employees to say, yeah, and they've got some great ideas as well. Let's use it,
Absolutely, yeah. Always involve, your employees. Definitely, they've got some great ideas, and they're the face of us, aren't they? For us, from our driver perspective, we've had some wonderful feedback about our drivers, in particular on our NHS transport. But they're there seeing it day in, day out, where we're not, and their ideas, can really help shape us as a business and grow us going forward.
So just, we're coming to the end of the webinar now, just really from a sort of a candidate attraction point of view, really to finish it off, we've discussed how you can use your brand to attract the right level of people. There's been some shocking statistics today, hasn't there, with regards to the number of redundancies, and unfortunately, we're going to see that get worse over the next 3 months with furlough coming to an end and companies having to pay more wages and more, towards that furlough scheme. Do you think, and I don't have the answer to this, I'm really intrigued to see what your thoughts are, and maybe some of the people on the webinar could give feedback as well. Do you see redundancy this time to become a good opportunity for clients when they're recruiting, or do you actually see it as an opposite effect, because the people you want to attract are not leaving their sort of secure job, if there is such a thing anymore, and you tend to find it harder to find the right skill set?
For us, there's obviously a large pool of drivers out there, but it's finding that right person for us. I do think, obviously, the whole nation's going to be affected by redundancies, and it is a real shock and a real worrying time for people, isn't it? I think it's going to be a challenge going forward, and how do we retain people, how do we attract people? Is the right person out there? I think the right people are out there. Will they want to leave their existing jobs? Probably not. They're worried about mortgages and any debt that they have. It's just an interesting time right now. How about for yourselves? What do you think?
Well, I think we were briefly discussing it earlier, wasn't we? It's, you live in your little bubble, and we've been through this. I'd say our third recession, and unfortunately, I think this is going to be the biggest. The global financial crisis was bad. Sort of after the year 2000, IT certainly hit a bit of a downturn after the millennial bug, etc. But I think, for us, and hopefully everybody, within our business, it makes you realise that you are part of the team, but equally we're all vulnerable as well, and we're all in this together. We're all in survival mode now. And we've just got to pull together. And if we ask people who are currently employed and not on furlough to maybe go above and beyond what they normally would, whether that's a few extra hours a day, because we're just trying to keep the lights on and trying to keep the wolf from the door, then, people are doing that. So, it's going to be interesting. There's certainly, a lot of candidates out there at the moment, but hopefully that will, we'll see this V-shaped recovery sooner rather than later. I've seen some good news that China has seen some good growth, so hopefully that will start, being spread across the globe, and we don't see this second wave. But let's finish on a positive. So, Paul, anything from you now, just to the Q&A?
Yeah, thanks again, Carl and Sally. Appreciate it. Well, firstly, the poll results. No surprise really that most people want that flexibility. Some people had a taste of working from home, and I think they quite enjoy it. They enjoy that flexibility, like you said, Sally. Your working day may have got longer, but what you actually do between that day is, go shopping, do some chores around the house. I don't know. It's that flexibility. It's the modern way. So I think, I think 92%. Give me the flexibility. So I think, I'm not surprised by those results at all.
And it's spending time with your family as well, isn't it, Paul? Because we're all together in the same household. It's actually quite nice to see one another and just spend that bit more time together. Is it necessarily quite a time? Probably not all the time. But it is really good that when you both finish work, that you can just go out for that walk straight away. You haven't got that walk from the house and downtime bit.
Yeah,
that's it. And I think, and that commute as well, like you said earlier, most people are doing half an hour, 45 minutes each way. There's nothing, after a long day in the office, there's nothing worse than having that, you're on the track, you're on the motorway, you hit traffic, and it's going to be an hour before you get home, where, that hour you could be out and about on your bike ride, out with the kids, Yeah, walking the dog, whatever you choose to do, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no surprise with the poll results there. Just one question I picked up on here. There's quite a good one. You know, you mentioned about, you know, changing a brand, and obviously you've gone through quite a big transition there. You know, so companies are spending a lot of money on their brand, getting it right, getting the right message out there. But what are you doing to protect it from a people point of view, from a supplier point of view, to ensure, you know, I suppose your brand message is consistent with people you work with?
So yeah, so a big part of my role has been to in particular work with our local authorities that we currently have work with, so where we're doing homeschool activities. So what we've been really doing is just like really sharing ideas and sharing kind of almost like our resources and platforms in that respect. So for us, because we're transporting minibuses, you know, the example is obviously you've got social distancing, so straight away we could only have 2 people sat in our minibuses, whereas we would have had up to 60 people sat possibly previously, and with social distancing that really threw us out for a moment, and we were like, having to plan and having to think about new ways of working. We've got a brilliant safety team who have introduced fogging, so like fogging our vehicles and, you know, do cleaning in different ways. We're doing temperature checks that have now been introduced in the business for all of our employees. But it was thinking about how could we get more people on board our vehicles? How could we get more children to school? So one of the things we've been doing is just speaking to local authorities and going, well, how do we get around this? And obviously with schools in particular, the bubbles being formed within schools. So we approached a couple of local authorities and we said, have you actually thought about transporting in the bubbles? Because they're going to be together at school in a bubble, and there's 6 of them. If you think about the transport first before you plan the bubble, let's transport them in that 6, and let's do it that way and start to think about it that way, and we could get more people on board our vehicles. So this has been a big thing with us, of just really working with local authorities and just sharing those ideas and just supporting their own brands as well. And, you know, and I think we are, as a, you know, we're all in it together now. We've seen great kind of the camaraderie, haven't we, across the nation of, you know, everybody clapping for the NHS and everything that's been going on, and clapping for our key workers and stuff. I think businesses are going to change in terms of we are going to be sharing resources, sharing ideas. We've also worked with like a new technology platform. There's a safeguarding platform as well, who are potentially coming on board with us. And it's, you know, it's about how the 3 of us can link together to make us a united brand and a really strong brand, actually all 3 of us together. And that's been really important to us over the past 3 months, how we can come out even stronger.
Brilliant.
Winning new work, etc.
No, that's great. I know, talking from experience, I know from, you know, historically we'd speak to HR, we'd speak to line managers, but now we are integrating and talking, communicating with marketing teams to ensure, you know, our own branding, our own advertising campaigns align with our clients. You know, branding and marketing sort of tone and message. So yeah, it's really important, that collaboration, and I think companies are more open to that approach. So yeah,
no, I totally agree with that.
Okay, well that's me done on questions. Carl and Sally.
Thank you. So Sally and the audience, really, again, thank you on behalf of ECS. Sally, what you and your team and the wider National Express group do, especially with the accessible transport over the last 3-4 months, has been amazing.
Brilliant.
It's forgotten about, isn't it? You know, there are people
Top
out
job.
there, and you know, there's a lot to do. So that's been fantastic. So really, on behalf of everyone, thank you for that.
Thank you.
For those of you who haven't realised, all 3 of us are from the Midlands, so you may have struggled to understand some of the Birmingham language. So we will be following this webinar with a Q&A session. There'll be a recording of this webinar, so you'll be able to review it back should you wish. And if there's anything that ECS can help with from a remote recruitment point of view, some of the software platforms we can give you access to, etc., please get in touch. But on that note, everyone, enjoy your afternoon. Thank you very much for being involved, and take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. See you soon.